Hello and welcome to the Success Mindset YouTube channel. I'm Damien Ellis and today we're joined by Nick Barratt. Hello Nick, how are you?
Hi Damien, I'm very well. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you Nick. And we're absolutely delighted to have Nick here today. So I'm going to read out the background of Nick. The past 20 years, Nick has used behavioural science to help individuals and organisations achieve their goals. Nick serves on the UK Society for Behavioural Analysis. He chairs the Acquired Behavioural Analysis Forum, and he is a member of the Positive Behavioural Support Academy. In 2014, he co-authored a book called Feeling Cross and Sorting It Out, which focuses on the interactional nature of challenging behaviour. I don't know how you fit it all in, Nick.
Very clever scheduling is the secret.
And just so the viewers can understand, before we go into the subjects that we're looking at, but can you just give a layman's synopsis of what behaviours that challenge and what behavioural science is?
So behavioural science is the application of science to understanding and changing behaviour. So it has quite a lot of different applications. There are quite a lot of theoretical disciplines that come under the heading of behavioural science. So what I've been trained in is something called behaviour analysis, and that is based on the scientific study of learning and behaviour, because most of the behaviours that are of interest really are learned behaviours. There are only a few things that we actually come into the world with, and they're really little more than reflexes. So it's an approach that's based on learning theory, and the idea being that if you're looking to change your behavior in some way, then first understanding the context in which it occurs is key, and then looking to learn skills that enable you to do things differently. So that's the basis of that. Yeah. So behaviors that challenge it's very much a social construct. So it depends on what a culture or a society says is challenging, and in order to be described as challenging, a behavior would have to carry with it a risk of physical harm to the person themselves, the person doing the behavior, or other people. It would need to be a behavior that impacted on quality of life in some way. Sorry, the person's own quality of life or quality of life of someone else.
The reason why I was so keen to get you involved, Nick, is because in these videos, we're obviously going to be talking to people from different disciplines, like neurolinguistic programming, non-verbals, different kind of leadership and mindset coaching. But I thought from a behavioural perspective, it's so interesting because your field, and I know having worked with you personally, your field is very much focused around sort of the background of social care, but every single person in the world has behaviours, and we all have good behaviours and not so positive behaviours. And the whole premise of these videos is understanding ourselves better and being able to control ourselves better, so we can then enhance our quality of life and the application of how we put ourselves forward into the world. So I'm really keen to have you on board. Thank you very much, Nick, for your time on this. So today we're going to be looking at dealing with stress using what is called a constructional approach. First of all, Nick, can you just explain why does stress come about? I mean, everyone has stresses in their lives. Why does stress come about for people?
Well, many of the demands of life can lead to stress. And stress is really it's emotional. It's a psychological pressure. That's it.
We hear that stress obviously is bad for bad for your body. It's bad psychologically. It's bad physically for you. What if left long term? And I think that a lot of people will know this innately anyway. But if left long term without doing something about it, what effects can stress have on the human condition?
It's useful sometimes to think of it in terms of the impact on thoughts, on feelings or emotions, on physiologically and behaviorally as well. So symptoms of stress include people finding it very difficult to concentrate, to have racing thoughts, to constantly be going over things. Emotionally, they can feel very irritable or anxious. In terms of physiology, it can lead to sleeplessness. It can result in people losing their appetite. There are stress hormones that, as they're often called, cortisol, adrenaline, that flood the body, and ideally after the stressful situation has passed, they leave the body. But if they stay, then it can lead to a continuation of those types of effects. And behaviorally, it can lead to people losing their temper, to drinking more alcohol, to eating more. So as well as some of the direct effects that it can have, so long-term stress, it can impact on the immune system, it can actually lead to behaviors and ways of thinking that can be very unhelpful in the long run.
So so it's key for people to be able to control their stresses better. And we know that over a long term, it can raise your blood pressure, it can have a significant impact on your mental well-being, and have a whole range of effects on the body. So can you explain to people watching this what a constructional approach is?
Yeah. So a constructional approach is where you look to change your behavior by learning new skills. So it's very much, so that's where the term constructional comes from. You're adding to your skill set, you're adding to your behavioral repertoire. So if you look at stress, then the first step is always some kind of assessment, some kind of attempt to understand the context, the situations that cause stress for you. And that's very much an individual thing. Although I said earlier about all of the potential causes of stress, which work, money, and so on, we still need to understand what it is for us specifically that causes stress. An example could be you might, for example, keep a stress diary and write down whenever it is that you were feeling stressed. And what you want to do there is look at what you were doing at the time, who was with you, time of day even. You might discover that unbeknownst to you, it's the day that you have your supervision with your line manager, that this is generally a stressful experience for you, one that maybe you can carry after, into your home life. And further digging might reveal, for example, that the reason for this is that your manager always gives you extra work to do, even when you're already at capacity. So there, you might decide that if you're going to apply a constructional approach, then what you want to do is learn some assertiveness skills. So you might want to practice ways of saying, actually, I'm at capacity at the moment. I really can't take anything more on.
You would think that people would just put this stuff into effect because people will know their stressors, or people will probably have a good idea of their stressors. So if people know this stuff, what barriers are there? Why do people not take the action that they otherwise probably should take? Why do people carry on with feeling stressed?
There are times when people genuinely don't recognize it. So there are people who can be stressed and absolutely don't know it. I've worked a lot with people over the years where one of the key exercises that we did was an exercise aimed to get them thinking about what the stressors were in their lives. I think people not recognizing it in the first place can be one of the reasons. And then I think that sometimes people do recognize that they're stressed, or let's make it even broader than that. They recognize that there is something they want to change in their own behavior. But what we know from research is that the intention to change your behavior only actually leads to behavior change about 50% of the time. So sometimes you need something more to make that happen, and there are reasons for that. So a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is very habitual, very automatic. So if you think about what you did this morning, so I don't know what you did, but let's say you got up, you had a coffee, you maybe had a shower, we get ready, we go to work, and so on. A lot of what we do, it's just a case of one behavior. When it ends, it is the prompt for the next behavior in that chain, and that's absolutely necessary. We wouldn't be able to function if we had to make decisions about the everyday things we do again and again, those everyday routines. So they have to become things that are automatic. Coming back to your question, if you're now trying to, let's say it is stress related, and you know that going for an hour's walk every day is really good for you and helps you relax. You might have identified that this is something that's good for you, but now making that part of your everyday routine, that's the challenge when you've already got a very well-established routine where one task finishes and it prompts you straight onto the next one. So sometimes we have to find, I often think of behavior change as an attempt to make a new desired behavior part of your everyday routine. That's the challenge.
That segues me nicely into my last question on this, which is, people watching this will want some, tangible takeaways that they can put into effect, maybe one or two things that they can go off and start implementing right now to help get that behavior change. And you've mentioned a lot of techniques. What would you, what might you advise one or two ways that people could go off and put into practice right now?
One of the key things that people can do is to create an implementation plan. So they've decided what it is that they want to change, this new behavior that they want to make part of their everyday routine. And it's a very simple plan. This is something that can be a few sentences. And really it's dealing with the what, when, and how of that behavior change. So what is it that I want to do? Let's use the going for a walk as an example. Okay, when will I do that? Let's say that it is, we decide, okay, after having that first cup of coffee of the morning, I'll go for a walk. That will set me up for the day. So you write that down. That's key, that commitment, that writing it down. And the other thing that can be very helpful is linking it to a routine that's already there. So I use the example of coffee because that's an essential part of my morning routine. So I'll have my coffee and then go for a walk, because these are what we call anchor activities. If you link it to the anchor activity, then you're more likely to do it. Take that plan, that piece of paper, stick it up on the fridge, put it somewhere visible. If you can get your family, your friends to be asking you about that, if you can make a public commitment to this, then you're far more likely to do it as well. It's that social support. It's why Weight Watchers work so well. It brings in that social aspect to it. So those are just a few things that people can do.
Yeah, and I think it's really important what you say about writing it down, because I know people I've worked with over the years with coaching, for example, we've always worked tangibly, we've physically written it down on paper rather than having a note on your telephone, because a note on your telephone can easily be lost. It's not something that will just pop up. Whereas if you've got something physical, something really tangible in your face, like you say, it's there, it's always in your consciousness, and it becomes ingrained as that part of the behavior cycle. So that's the end of this episode of the Success Mindset YouTube channel. Thank you very much to Nick Barratt for your time today. And we'll see you next time. As we always end these videos, make your life a masterpiece, my friends. Go out and execute everything you need to do. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.